not be politically but business wise, we can hold on to our own. I'm speaking from personal experience. As Prakash said, I was heading a channel called Janashri that was owned by a politician. When I took up the assignment, I had this dilemma. The dilemma was whether I was going to compromise my journalistic ethics for the sake of an opportunity. Then I decided I would take it up, if only to prove that despite working for a channel that is owned by a politician, you can still give out credible news. This, to a large extent, we were able to achieve. Essentially because political credibility of the news that I give out was always questionable in the minds of the audience because they knew who was behind the channel. So the challenge for me was to overcome this limitation of being always looked at with suspicion. How do I do that? Basically, it's very simple. If you ask me, if you have the conviction, you can do it. Take the focus away from politics, right? The moment a politician's channel is talking about politics, you are looked at with suspicion. I take politics out of the equation. There is more to journalism. There is more to, basically, there are a lot of human interest issues which usually escape attention. There are a lot of issues that directly affect us, the common man. If you take up those issues, you are still true to your profession without actually compromising on the interests of the promoter. See, today, as V. Raghavan was explaining earlier, it's a business. We all need money. We all need money to live. I know I cannot just be working out of passion and not earn anything. How do I get my money? My money has to come from advertisers. And the advertising community is not going to look kindly at a channel owned by a politician. Monies are not going to come easily because credibility is an issue. Then how do we make it profitable? I need to make this channel profitable. I need to make this a business model that works for my promoter. At the same time, I retain my credibility. This is a great challenge, but I overcame it by creating products that were individually saleable. I have a television channel is a bouquet of products apart from news. News is also there, but take the focus away from hardcore political news and create products that my sales team can take out to the market and convince the advertisers that here is a brand that you can proudly associate yourselves with. That's what we did. Newspaper, there was reference to newspaper. Prakash was talking about it. Prakash was saying Gandhiji used to run 8 publications. If I am a print journalist, if I can muster about 10 to 12 lakh rupees, I can start my own newspaper. I cannot do that with a television channel. A journalist can never own a television channel. Never. So we have to depend on businessmen, we have to depend on media barons, we have to depend on politicians to start channels. Today, of about 120 odd news channels in India, 1/3 belong to various politicians. All these 40 odd news channels may not survive in the long run because politicians come to news channel for 2 reasons. A, to influence. B, if possible, make some money. Most of the time, in the long run, news channel is, they'll discover. They'll discover, like many other industrialists who came into media earlier, the biggest of names, including the Ambanis, who came to media, who had to go out burning their fingers. like them, politicians will also discover in the long run that it is not a viable business option if they are not going to make it neutral and credible. That day is going to come, you know. Till such time, we have the luxury of watching all the channels, we have the luxury of getting to know all the points of views from all politicians and also so-called neutral channels, which unfortunately do not always remain neutral, but news in such a scenario becomes unfortunately entertainment. The good thing is the common man is wiser than we think, you know. Common man is not going to be influenced by whatever I say, whatever I...
Let him have the last word. You know, it is a tight place, as Anant has just explained. And because, you know, unlike most professions, I'm not saying it happens only to journalism, but it's one of the few professions where you have a personal moral responsibility as well, apart from a corporate or organizational responsibility. Let me mean it this way. Supposing you're working in a bomb-making factory, say a factory that makes chemical weapons, you can still function under the illusion that you're an ethical person. You can pay your taxes, get to work on time, be very hardworking, but you know, you can believe you're ethical. But actually journalism, at least for thinking journalists, it does not allow that room, that luxury is not there. So it is a complicating question for us. And Maya Sharma, who's been a face we all know, who sort of represents what is decent in our journalism, whom we have seen for many years now. I want to ask her, she's been there for some time now, and with one channel, with NDTV, I want to ask Maya Sharma, apart from whatever else you were going to say, can we keep that personal ethical agency in operation in such a tight place?
Thanks, Prakash. And yes, I don't work in a chemical weapons factory, which is a very, very fortunate thing indeed. Yes, the personal role in a larger channel as well. I just first like to get to the issue of, yes, we all want to be number one. We've been talking about number one in terms of business, in terms of viewership, in terms of advertising revenue, which is of course hugely, hugely important. But we also want to be number one in another way. We want to be the channel, the reporter who you believe, who you think, okay, if that channel is saying that, if that reporter is saying that, it's true. That is a very different number one. It doesn't always translate into numbers because many times viewers want to see something which is a little more sensational, a little more extreme. But that is a different definition of number one, the number one channel. If you can feel that people will say, if they have said it, if he has said it, if she has said it, it must be true. They must have checked their facts. So that is a different number one, which I think also goes to the individual thing also. You do not, politically owned channels, yes, of course, will have their definite pressures. But you cannot, if you want to sleep well at night, you cannot give in to certain things or go against or say something you know which isn't true. Because it is your own credibility on the line. Journalism, as Prakash was saying earlier, is a place where it's you, the individual. You are out there as well. You're not manufacturing something in a factory. You're not working on a software code where nobody knows who you are. In journalism, people know you. So it's your reputation on the line as well. Having said that, we want to be the channel that you watch when you go home in the evening and want to catch up on the day's news. But is there a real differentiation between these channels? Now, I'm restricting myself largely to English news channels, of course. Is there any major differentiation? I think as a reporter in the Bureau, I'm sure many other people who have worked elsewhere outside Delhi as well would agree, that our own channels seem to keep a very, very close eye on what the competitor is telecasting, what the other channels are doing, what are they saying, what are they reporting. Sometimes you feel an even closer eye than what you're reporting yourself because, you know, we get calls saying, you know, but this channel is carrying this, and I'm saying, yes, but I did report that 1 hour ago. But the attention to other channels, the desire not to be left behind, does make a kind of uniformity. If you turn on a channel at prime time, chances are you may find the same topic being discussed by the same set of people, and miraculously enough, the same person may be apparently be live in 2 different studios at the same time. That's the magic of television. We won't go into how that happens. So it's big news. It's big news. If the other channel has it, it's big news. If you have it and they don't have it, is it really big news? But if they have it, it's like a catch-22 situation. If they already have it, you're already too late. So it's really kind of a difficult act to follow. And if another channel carries a story, then your own channel will want to cover it too. So what happens is there is that kind of uniformity that sets in, that if we are covering the Modi rally live, that other channel will definitely cut to the Modi rally live, or the Rahul Gandhi rally, or whatever. It's like you will get mails flying around saying, get onto it, cut it live. So that uniformity is there. So how do you differentiate really at number one? So as part of the question you'd asked me to talk about, we may have 100 channels, but are we getting 100 different points of view? Probably not. Probably not. Like, if there are politically owned channels, then yes, especially in Tamil Nadu, maybe you're getting very definite political views. But in terms of channels who are aspiring to be neutral, trying to be neutral, pretending to be neutral, you may find that there is a similarity across the board, really. Now, another big change in news is that it is very anchor-driven. Primetime has become very anchor-driven. It's who they're talking to in the studio, with the result that field reporting, there's just much less of it. There are fewer reporters out there in the country, fewer reporters across the channels across the country, which means fewer stories as we used to understand television news stories. Again, I may be old-fashioned, I've been in this business for a long time, but how many times do you turn on the television at prime time and see visuals, see a story being told from a region, physically from a place itself, or do you more likely see a politician or a political group discussing what has happened? So where is the chance there really for the old-fashioned style of investigative reporting, in-depth reporting, the deeper kind of reporting? Where is the space for that? Very often stories on prime time are there because they fit into a discussion which the prime time anchor may want to talk about that day. If they're talking about Modi versus Rahul campaigning styles, you may do a story which fits into that and the discussion goes across. If they're choosing a different subject altogether, then you may have done a story on a similar line, but it may not get telecast at prime time, which is not a great position for reporters to be in. If if a politician wants to make a revelation or say something sensational, they may want to do it on a primetime network. So why would they want to give any important information to a reporter on the field? So while there is still a place for reporters, for deep investigative reporting, it's not on prime time right now at this stage. Things have changed, but television news, like everything else, is in a state of flux. Change is the only constant, as Preet was saying. This is where it is now. It will change once again. And online news, for example, as you were saying, has already made such inroads that if you want to see news about a certain subject, you will find it if you look for it. So it's changing the definition of prime time. It's changing the definition of what you can watch when you want to watch it. Now, I don't want to sound too cynical. The media, to a large extent, television journalism, television channels, are to a large extent still fulfilling their dream role, perhaps, of being a watchdog, of keeping an eye on things, of making people accountable. You've seen it in the big stories recently, from Jessica Lal to the Delhi rape case, where there was a genuine outrage that was reflected around the country, to the floods in the Himalayas, where people were made aware of what was going on. That, and there where channels work together, there where all the channels focus on the same thing, it becomes a very, very powerful force. It becomes, people cannot ignore. If all the media channels are talking together about a subject, there's no way that it can be ignored. There will be change. They will be made accountable, which is really great. It just shows how powerful journalism can be, until we move on to the next item in the agenda. So television state is in a constant state of renewal, a constant state of change, and it's an exciting place to be. So do keep watching this space for more. It will change. There will be more coming. Hopefully, you will see reports back on primetime again. That's my personal grouse as a field reporter. But it's just a crazy place to be. Who is number one? How do you define number one? I would say credibility, but of course, you need the money. News is so expensive, which is one of the reasons why most programs in primetime are anchor-driven. It's much less expensive to broadcast out of a studio than to send a reporter with an OB van and a team a few hundred kilometers to the field for a 1-minute story. So number one, yes, we want the money, but we also want the credibility, the viewership, and all channels want you to watch. So when you make up your mind this evening, really, that's what we're wanting. Thanks.
Thank you, Maya. You know, when Preet Dupar started this, you know, I was surprised that there was a underlying positive tone in the way she was saying it, because not just because you used the word vibrant. You know, there seems to be like, it's not so as bad as we seem to make it out to be, you know. And when Maya speaks also, she says she seems to be operating in a world of possibilities. And rather than look at the possibilities only in terms of new technology, a new world, you know, I'm saying there is change already if you regress a little bit. As more people become literate in this country, they'll first begin to consume news in their own languages. And we never seem to reckon with what is happening with what we have called Mofussil news, or the Mofussil space. Now, Ravi Hegde has done some work both in television and in regional newspapers. He's now the group editor of Udayavani. And Udayavani actually, like, largely it occupies the imagination of a part of Karnataka, although it is all over the state. I want him to actually focus on this idea of there is actually a future of the local, of the extreme regional. And they're thriving. Some of the newspapers in Karnataka, for instance, are thriving. And you know, they don't depend much on advertising. So that is the future. Actually, they depend on subscription. They get people to buy it. Actually, local Kannada language newspapers who don't get advertising are very expensive, but they have a healthy circulation. So I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just before going to this Kannada newspaper and the hyperlocal contents, let me just define the news from the print perspective, because a lot of television journalists here, and I think somebody should stand up from print and say, okay, I'm a print person and this is the news from the print perspective. As an editor of a newspaper or a representative of print journalism, when somebody says that the media and entertainment or media and entertainment segment, M&D sector that is, or media and entertainment industry, it sounds little odd to me. It sounds odd because for a journalist, media is not entertainment. For a journalist, media is not the same as entertainment, and media and entertainment cannot be on the same platform. The purpose of entertainment is entertainment, entertainment and entertainment. But the purpose of media is not entertainment. For me, the media should sound something like, or as seriously as constitution, democracy, social justice, or something like judiciary or legislature. If we can bring media and entertainment on the same platform, can we bring judiciary and entertainment on the same platform and say media and judiciary and entertainment industry? Why? Judiciary is no less entertaining than media or entertainment industry today. Or can we say legislature and entertainment industry? Legislature is the biggest entertainment this industry India is getting. It is free. We get bonuses every day. So, but having said this, with a lot of agitation in, I've agreed, media and entertainment conclave. There is this thinking line, this resistance within This is the clear differentiation between the print journalism and the television journalism. Television journalism, yeah. Why I say, let me just justify, because that's the clear differentiation, because this resistance. News channel and the entertainment channel works on the common platform like TRP. As long as the TRP and GRP and rating systems are there, they need to work on the same platform. There is no other way. See, as long as there is a drama going on television screen, people look at it. Some sober person talking like a 1990s Doordarshan channel, people won't see that. There should be some drama. One person should be slapping another person should be this one, and five people, one person should be shouting. People will look at the channel. This kind of entertainment should be there. See, I say there is a little difference between the content, the channels they work on entertainment, GECs and news channels, because some Saas Bahu drama will be going on GEC, and some news-based drama will be happening on news channel. Both of them are fighting for TRPs. So this is where the news is lost. We always say facts are sacred and opinions are free. But in the television world, what happens? There is the facts are lost and opinions are confusing. A lot of people come and talk, and at the